And Yashoda Mai said, "You are very naughty, I must protect you." So she took a rope from her hair, because Krishna was very small, and she tied it around his waist. She attempted to do so, but it was the width of 2 fingers too short. So she took another string from her hair and put it, and it was again 2 fingers too strong. Then she took a rope that was used for churning the butter, and she tied that to those, and again it was 2 fingers too short. And she took all the churning ropes in her whole house. Then she started getting the ropes that were used for the little calves, and she was tying more and more rope to the original ropes. Krishna's waist was not growing. It was the same little waist, hardly the size of Yashoda Mai's fist. And the ropes were becoming meters and meters and meters and meters big, tied together, and still 2 fingers too short. And Krishna was crying, "Please don't tie me up, please don't tie me up." Yashoda Mai said, "I must tie you. I must protect you." They were very soft, silken type of ropes. And then the gopis came from other houses, and they saw this. And all the gopis from all directions were bringing all the ropes of their house. And there were so many different color ropes. There was yellow ropes and blue ropes and purple ropes and green ropes and orange ropes and white ropes. And they were all being tied by Yashoda Mai to the pre-existing ropes. And again, 2 fingers too small. How is that possible? Srila Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sanatan Goswami, Sridhar Swami, they're giving so many beautiful commentaries to explain what's happening. Krishna's Parabrahma. He's the supreme Brahman. The Brahma Jyoti, which is his energy, is all pervading within and without everything. Nothing is outside of Brahman. So how could she tie Krishna with a rope outside of him? Everything was within. Very interesting pastime. The Supreme Absolute is transcendental. He's Atmarama, he's self-satisfied. Yet he's crying because he wants butter. He's the Supreme Truth, yet he's lying to increase the ecstasy of the love of his mother. He's beyond the modes of material nature, and yet he's appearing angry and breaking the little pots. He's feared by fear personified. He's the cause of time. He's Satchidananda. Even Yamaraj and Kalarupa is afraid of Krishna. But Krishna is showing fear. Why? Just to show the power of love. He is exhibiting all these qualities simply as a reciprocation of his love, although he is beyond everything. But when he's captured by the intimacy of a love of his devotee, Bhaktavatsala, he's not just pretending, he's actually experiencing dependency on the love of his devotees. This is Vrindavan, the highest jewel of the supreme independence of the Lord. The gopis were saying to Yashoda Mai that, don't you see, every time you tie the ropes together, it's the same distance too short? It is not Krishna's destiny to be tied up today. And Yashoda Mai was so determined to protect Krishna. She said, I am not going to give up. However long it takes, however much rope I have to use, I want to find out how much rope it takes to put around the waist of my little Gopal. And also, if I don't teach him, who's going to teach him? She was smiling, she was laughing, and she was tying. And after some time, she was perspiring, and her sari was becoming loosened. And Krishna saw what was the enthusiasm of her love. He allowed himself to be tied up. Those two fingers, they represent what is required. The width of the two fingers represent what it is required to bind Krishna with our love. One is our enthusiasm and perseverance to serve, even in the face of all obstacles. When Krishna sees that for his pleasure we are not being discouraged by success or failure, honor or dishonor, pleasure or pain, happiness or distress, health or disease, victory or defeat. Devotional service is ahoitaki apratihata. It is unconditional by these things. As long as there's selfishness or arrogance in what we do, then we become very discouraged because we're not getting our way. But when we're truly doing it for Krishna's satisfaction, even though there may be heartaches, there's so many impediments in doing Krishna's will, our enthusiasm to persevere for Krishna's pleasure with the right intention of the heart will never wane. This is the first principle. Whether we are tasting sweet nectar when we're chanting the holy names, or whether we don't taste anything, or even it kind of tastes bitter. I'd rather be doing so many other things. It doesn't matter so much that, but for Krishna's pleasure, I will go on chanting. I will do my japa. I will do my meditation on Krishna's names, because it's for Krishna's pleasure. And whether I feel or don't feel, whether it's hot or cold, I will carry on with my seva. Hanumanji, he was unconditional. Whether he was in the embrace of Ram, feeling the tears of Ram's love bathing him, or whether he was face to face with Ravana, with his tail on fire, tied with ropes. His enthusiasm to persevere for the pleasure of Ram was always there. And that is Vrindavan in its highest, sweetest manifestation. Sambhog, when the Gopas and the Gopis, the Brijabasis were meeting Krishna, their hearts were flowing with the ecstasy of love to serve Krishna, and was manifesting through everything they said, everything they thought, and everything they did. And when Krishna departed for Mathura and Dwarka, it was not an impediment. Their enthusiasm, their perseverance, their faith was ever increasing in vipralamba bhav, in love and separation. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami tells that the gopis, every day after Krishna left for Mathura, they would make garlands, they would make bhoga, they would make beautiful flower beds for him to meet with Sri Radha, because they were expecting he'll come today. And when he didn't come, they just remembered him so deeply in separation, crying tears of love as offerings. And the next day they would do the same thing, year after year, no impediment. Yashoda Mai, for Krishna's protection, to show her motherly love for Krishna, she was willing to spend the rest of eternity tying ropes. That was her enthusiasm. And the second finger represents Kripa, Krishna's kindness, Krishna's mercy. Because no matter how enthusiastic, how we persevere, it's not enough. Unless Krishna reveals himself to us by his own sweet will. It's a descending process. We could never know him. Yegata mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, as one surrenders to me, I reciprocate accordingly. When a devotee, for the pleasure of Krishna, samsiddhir haritoshana, with faith in Krishna's causeless mercy, surrenders their love, then Krishna reciprocates, and by his mercy, he is conquered by that love. Yashoda Mai tied Krishna up. And Krishna told his mother, please untie me. And Yashoda Mai, she said, Krishna, I will be close by. You're very naughty today. You be like this right now, and I'll be back. It was a very comfortable situation for him. And when Yashoda Mai left, she brought a few of Krishna's little friends just to be with him, to keep him company, so he would be happy. So his friends were joking with him. Balaram was not there at the time, but the other little gopas, they were saying, Krishna, you got tied up. Krishna said, untie me, but they couldn't untie him. Actually, Krishna didn't want to be untied, because that rope was the rope of Yashoda's love. He was so happy. Even some gopas were saying, can we untie you? He said, no. He was feeling so sheltered and in the love of his devotee. And he looked outside, and he saw two gigantic trees, Arjuna trees. Arjuna trees have huge roots, really thick roots. One time our dear godbrother Dinabandhu Prabhu was explaining, he went to, I think, a place like Mauritius, where there was a cyclone, like a hurricane. And trees were blown down everywhere. But the Arjuna trees, because their roots, they're both above the ground and below the ground, and they're so thick, the base of them are so strong, such a foundation, that the Arjuna trees didn't move. And when Krishna looked at those trees, he was remembering his devotee Narada Muni. The story of the trees. Briefly. Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. They were the assistants of Kuvera. Sons of Kuvera, who's the treasurer of the Devas. That means they were living in a heavenly abode. Their bodies were heavenly beautiful. They had incredible physical strength and handsome qualities. They had amazing degrees of wealth, property, ornamentation. They had tremendous personalities. Everything they did was so expert. And they were proud. It's hard to be better than so many people and not be proud. So they were thinking that they just have the right to enjoy any way that they want to enjoy. They were in a lake, in a heavenly resort, with heavenly ladies. And they were all without clothes on, playing with each other. And Narada Muni, the great sage, the great rishi, he's a brahmachari, he's a swami. He comes by with his veena, singing, Narada Muni bhajai veena radhika mananame. And when the ladies saw Narada Muni, the great sage, they became very sober. Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were intoxicated on all kinds of wines, heavenly nectars. The ladies got out and they covered themselves and they offered their pranams to Narada Muni with respect. But Nala and Kuvera and Manigriva, they couldn't care less about one of these Hare Krishna people coming by. They totally ignored Narada. We have our wealth, we have our prosperity, we have our power, we have our business, we have our families. That's how intoxicated they were. Narada Muni was feeling so much compassion for them. Narada Muni doesn't have a house, he doesn't have a bank account. He has nothing. All he has is love for Krishna and Krishna's holy name. Premdhan, Mahanidhi, the supreme greatest of all treasures, is Prema Pumartha Mahan, Prema Bhakti, Prem Nidhi. That was his wealth. And that wealth of love for Krishna is beyond time, it's beyond birth, it's beyond death, it's ever increasing, and it's the only thing that could give fulfillment to the eternal soul. So he was saying, these two devas, they were so arrogant, they were so disrespectful, they were destroying their own possibilities. Narada Muni felt especially compassionate toward them. And he told them, because you are so much infatuated by all your powers and wealth and beauty, and you think yourself better than everyone, the quality of a great soul is amani namanadena, that we shouldn't care about being respected ourselves, but we should find the greatest joy in giving respect to others. We could evaluate how much we're progressing by just applying that principle to our own way of thinking in life, our values. He said, you are standing before a great sage, naked like a tree. I bless you to become trees. Hare Krishna. Now, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, to them that was a serious curse. Yes? When you're attached to all of this, and now they're just going to be trees. But the thing is, they had tree bodies, but they had the exact same consciousness as Manigriva and Nala Kuvera. Generally, trees have tree consciousness. It's a very, very what is a good word? It's a very undeveloped state of God consciousness. Trees are conscious, they feel. But if they had the consciousness of a human, how could they stand throughout the winter being covered with ice and stand in the summer giving shade to others and just being burning in the sun? But these two devas had the full consciousness of devas in the bodies of trees. They stood in one place. Even if they have an itch, that itch may go on for 10,000 years and they can't scratch it. That's a tree. And little insects are going, and trees don't mind, they like it. But when you're in a very developed demigod consciousness, more developed than a human even, in the body of a tree, very difficult. But they were there for many, many years. And Narada Muni, he arranged for them to be trees in the courtyard of what would be the house of Nanda, Yashoda, Krishna, Balaram. So they could see, they could feel, they could hear. They couldn't speak, they couldn't move, but they could just take it all in. So from Krishna's day of birth, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were watching his pastimes. They were seeing the intimate, sweet, loving relations between he and Nanda and Yashoda and the Gopas and the Gopis. And ever since Krishna's birth, he was seeing them. They were just near the gateway of Gokul. And Krishna was thinking that my dear devotee Narada, he put these demigods as trees here. And they're kind of like bound up into these tree bodies. And now that I'm bound up by a rope to this wooden grinding mortar, I'm feeling special sympathy for them. I will fulfill the desire of my devotee, because my devotee put them here so that they can attain the highest perfection of ecstatic love. Whatever a great devotee does, however it may appear, it's always with the intention of pure compassion, and it's the greatest blessing. So little baby Krishna, he was just a couple years old. He started crawling, and he pulled, and somehow this big wooden grinding mortar started dragging behind him. And the little children, they were amazed. They were saying, Gopal, you're pulling the grinding mortar. And Gopal was just smiling like this. And they were, Gopal, you're actually pulling the grinding mortar. This is wonderful. What are you going to do? And Krishna was smiling. and he went between the trees. And as he crawled between the trees, the grinding mortar got caught between them. And Krishna just pulled once more. Sorry. The trees broke and fell to the ground. It was the whole earth shook because they were massive. They were thousands of years old. It was like an earthquake. Everything was like thunder. It was such a massive sound that all the Brijabasis, the shaking of the earth and the tumultuous sound of the falling of the trees, everyone fell unconscious. Except the little children near Krishna who was watching it. The reason why, for them, it was the sweetest thing they ever saw. Gopal, knock those trees down. With the rope of Mother Yashoda's love. This is beautiful. They were just laughing and smiling and clapping. Well done, Krishna. Nalakuver and Manigriva appeared like blazing flames of fire. They were so beautiful. They were decorated in their demigod garments now. And they stood before Krishna with folded hands and prayed. Just by the association of watching Krishna and meditating on his pastimes, just by seeing the loving relations between he and his devotees, they became completely purified. They were the most mystically self-satisfied sages in the form of those trees. They were weeping tears of anand, ecstatic love. And they were explaining to Krishna how all of this was his kindness. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano. Lord Brahma prays. When a devotee is put in a difficult situation, if with folded hands they see the opportunity to go deeper into their bhakti and remain faithful and offer their hearts to Krishna with humility and gratitude. If a person could do that, even in difficult times, that person alone is entitled to the perfection, the highest liberation. They realize that platform of devotion. They were profusely thanking Narada Muni for giving them this blessing. Otherwise, we would have gone through our whole life wasting it with intoxication and sensory enjoyments. But by the grace of Narada, we have attained the ultimate intoxication of the soul. Bhav. Krishna. Vrindavan Bhav. And their only prayer to Krishna, wherever you want us to be, we only want to remember you and be the servant of your servants, constantly chanting your glories and your holy names. Krishna blessed them. He's just a little baby, still tied up, and he's blessing the demigods and giving them permission to go back to their abodes. But now they're pure devotees. They're Paramhamsa, Mahatmas. And suddenly, everyone wakes up from their unconsciousness and they come running to the scene. And Yashoda Mai, when she came up from her unconsciousness and she found out what happened, she was feeling so embarrassed. She was feeling so guilty that I tied Krishna up and now look what happened. It was inconceivable. And Nanda Maharaj came running there. And he untied Krishna. And Nanda Maharaj, he knew everything. But still, he asked Krishna, "Who is the fool that tied you up?" And Krishna said, my mother did it." Nanda Maharaj didn't say anything. And Krishna crawled on Nanda Maharaj's lap, and Nanda Maharaj he was asking, what happened? And all the Brijabasis were gathered around, and they were thinking, how is this possible? These were giant trees. We've been singing it all our life. How did they fall down? There was no high winds. There was no charging elephants. How all of a sudden the trees just fell down? We cannot understand this. And Nanda Maharaj, he asked the little children, "Do you know how this happened?" And the little children smiled and laughed, and they said, yes, we know what happened. What happened? Little Gopal, after Yashoda Mai tied him up around the waist to the wooden grinder, he was crying and crying. And then after his mother left, he was crying when she was there. But after he was left, he was with us and he started laughing and joking. And then he crawled. And he went between the trees, and the grinding mortar got stuck, and little Gopal pulled, and the trees came out, and then these two incredible people who looked like blazing fire with all sorts of ornaments, they bowed down to little Gopal, they surrendered their lives, they offered prayers, and then they disappeared somewhere in the northern direction. We don't know who they were or where they went, but it was incredible. And the cowherd men we're thinking, what is the talk of these little children? What nonsense are they talking? How is this possible that the trees fell? And Nanda Maharaj said, "Would you like to go back to your mother?" And Krishna said, "No, she tied me up. I will not go back to her. But I'm hungry." So Nanda Maharaj took little Gopal with the other cowherd men, and they went to the Yamuna River and took their baths together. Nanda Maharaj was everyone was so scared because these two trees fell. The bodies of the tree were laying there uprooted, and on either side, just inches from little Gopal. If the trees were even inches, Krishna would have been crushed. It was very scary for them to see it. And they were not thinking he's God. They were thinking he's just our loving little helpless child. So Nanda Maharaj took him to the Yamuna to become purified and blessed by Yamuna Devi, who's the sister of Yamaraj and the daughter of Surya. And then he took Krishna to the Goshala, where the cows were being milked. And he gave Krishna milk. And Krishna was very happy. And then he took Krishna back home and he bathed Krishna. And then it was time for dinner, and Balaram came, and Krishna, Balaram, and Nanda Maharaj were taking dinner together. Meanwhile, Rohini Devi, Yashoda Mai's dearmost best friend and Balaram's mother, she saw Yashoda Mai's condition. She felt so guilty, so ashamed. why did I tie up Krishna? In tying up Krishna, I risked his life. I subjected him to be between these massive trees falling down. And the worst thing is now Krishna's angry with me. He doesn't even want to look at me. Seeing Yashoda Mai's condition, some of the gopis went to Krishna and said, Krishna, your mother, she wants to see you. She feels so bad. Don't you want to see her? And Gopal, he said, no, she tied me up. And they said, well, who's going to feed you? You've been brought up all your life on her milk. And Gopal said, there are so many cows that my father has. I will drink their milk. She said, but Yashoda Mai plays with you every day. Who's going to play with you? And Gopal said, I have so many cowherd boyfriends to play with. And Rohini Devi said to Nanda Maharaj that Yashoda, she's feeling so much shame. And Nanda Maharaj said, when somebody does the wrong thing, then it's good they feel some shame. That way they learn. Rohini Devi said, if Yashoda Mai hears your words, she will be devastated. For the whole day, Yashoda couldn't show her face to anyone. She was crying. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She was just feeling so much that my Gopal is displeased with me. That's all. It wasn't a matter of her social position. It was her whole life was to love Gopal and to please him. And he was displeased with her. Her heart was breaking with love. And Rohini Devi was explaining the situation. And Nanda Maharaj knew exactly what to do. He said to Gopal, he lifted his hand. He said, should I hit your mother? And Gopal was so fearful, he took his father's hand and said, no, 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 no. And then Nanda Maharaj and Rohini said, without you, Yashoda will not be able to live. And Gopal immediately jumped off Nanda Maharaj's lap and ran to the house of Yashoda. And he was crying, Ma, Ma, Mother, 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 I'm coming, Mother, please, please, Mother, I'm coming for you. And when Yashoda Mai heard his voice, she ran out of the house to Krishna, and they ran, and he jumped into her arms, and she embraced him and looked at his beautiful face, and he smiled upon her. And she fed him with the nectar of her love. All the suspense of the Leela was only to increase the sweetness of their love. That is Vrindavan. Madhurya Dham, the place of the deepest sweetness. Shukadev Goswami, the crest jewel of all renunciates and scholars, he gives a beautiful verse to summarize this pastime. He said, the mercy, this kind of mercy has never been accessible even to Lord Brahma, even to Lord Shiva. or Lakshmi Devi, the expanded energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have never experienced the type of mercy that was given to Mother Yashoda. Brahma is the original guru of the universe. Paramhamsa Acharya, who's the firstborn son of the Lord and the secondary or creator, such a Mahatma. And Shiva, who is an expansion, non-different than Narayan, non-different than Krishna, who's the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of creation. Sadashiva, Rudra, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, most exalted personality. And Lakshmi Devi, who's the goddess of fortune, who's never separated from Krishna, who is his consort of Lord Narayan. Shukadev Goswami said, what was given to Yashoda cannot be understood and experienced even by Brahma, Shiva, or Lakshmi. And what is that? Yashoda's pure, intimate, sweet, motherly love conquered Krishna, bound Krishna, gave the highest satisfaction to Krishna. And Krishna gave the deepest, sweetest, highest ecstasy of spiritual satisfaction to Yashoda Mai. This is Vrindavan. Today, Diwali is the actual day when this Leela, Damodar Bandhana, took place. Actually, after Krishna was untied and was reunited with Mother Yashoda more intimately than ever, the gopis, from that day on, they would love to call Krishna Damodar, one who was bound by the waist by the rope of your mother's love. Satyavrat Muni in Damodarastakam offers obeisances to Gopal, who's conquered by the love of his devotee. And he offers his obeisances to Yashoda Mai, who is such a devotee. And he offers his obeisances millions of times to the rope, which personifies the love of a devotee's heart. Later on, there's another Damodar pastime where Srimati Radharani, the Hladini Shakti, the ultimate reservoir of all love, who is the presiding goddess of all devotion in Vrindavan,